Hey, what is up, Patreon? It's Rich. All right, welcome to a new video. I was gonna do a drawing video this morning to continue that series, but I hurt my shoulder like 5 days ago, and it was getting better, and it still hurts. It's not my drawing arm; it's my left arm. But it's weird. Like you don't realize how much you use both shoulders until one's messed up. But yeah, I heard it years ago, swinging a baseball bat. And I did it twice, like a year apart. But yeah, I used to play baseball. And I was swinging for the fences, and I don't know if I ripped my rotator cuff, but I did something. And only like 2 or 3 times in my life since then has it ever like been re-injured. But yeah, I don't know. I did it when I was asleep. I vaguely remember sort of like stretching or doing something weird with my arm, and yeah, it like I heard it last week, and then it was getting better, and then I don't know if like I was trying to do some stretching exercise. I think I heard it again, so it's sore and it's uncomfortable. So I'm gonna take it easy because I actually do need to ink a full page today. But I still need to study this inking style. So I had done that Arthur Adams Super Fun Sunday yesterday, and I kept making references to Mcfarlane, how Mcfarlane has that really kind of organic, very drawn line look. These aren't thrown lines. I kind of said it in the last video, but I didn't say it so clearly. But the difference of this kind of line work, I think he does throw some lines, but drawing a line versus throwing a line really does get a quite different look. And what you find is a thrown line generally will be pretty accurate and quite sort of linear and straight, and a drawn line will have these organic little sort of like squigglies, and they just don't look as confident if you're going to be super anal. But this is an effective style of inking, and it's a different style. It's quite difficult to learn because of the organic nature of it. But we've looked at the Vault Edition before, but we're going to focus kind of on the inking today. My shoulder is killing me. It sucks. It doesn't hurt that bad. On a scale from 1 to 10, it's like a 5, but it's really annoying and very uncomfortable. I'm holding the phone with the other hand, but yeah, it's like, I mean, I can't really like, every time I move, like turning the page hurts. So anyway, yeah, we'll take a look at this stuff. All right, I'm gonna set the phone down really quick and then flip to further into the book. All right, here we are. So yeah, so what I found is doing that Arthur Adams video yesterday, it actually is a really good study guide because taking the phone and sticking it up to the page like this is a really, really tight, detailed view of the inks. And looking at the book, I mean, you can obviously still see this, but there is something nice about just having a video that you can study from. And autofocus is on. I'm going to turn this off. Yesterday, that was really bugging me. The camera kept trying to focus constantly, and it was actually making it more out of focus than in focus. It was really frustrating filming the video. This is really, really nice. I mean, he's got some pretty decent feathering in here, but again, it's not as slick as like a professional inker would do it, like a Bat or me or Mickey has bounced back and forth between doing stuff like this and more slick things. Danny's kind of a freak of nature, though, in a weird way. Like, I mean, I think there's only really one Danny Mickey, and even Scott Williams. I think any inker sort of appreciates, like, the psychoness of Danny. He's really, really nuts. I mean, I really wouldn't put anything past him. Oh, it's funny, Cerebus, because he pops up later in some of the later issues of Spawn. I'm going to get the next version of this book. But anyway, but yeah, so I needed to look at this stuff because even like this, like these leaves on these bushes, I would go in and make them so much more detailed and they would actually kind of look like leaves. But if you really look at these, it looks like he just took a marker and kind of splashed that stuff down. And again, what I had mentioned in the Arthur Adams video yesterday was the more that you deviate and start putting more finessey detail onto this style, the more you're pulling it away from the style, essentially. And what happens is, if on a page like this, I stay focused and keep my line organic 60% of the time, that other 40% of the time when I'm throwing really, really good lines and they're slick and it all pulls it away, and it sort of sends like a mixed signal. Like, this is actually tight for Todd. Like this right here, do you see like how the lines are pretty equally spaced? It's not really a feather per se. It's a tapered line, but even this stuff, like those look outlined. Like he outline those white lines, and didn't do it with like white ink, where like an inker might color that all in black and then go in and kind of redraw it with like a Hunt 102. So all those little things add up, and it pulls it away from this look, which is kind of what Dan and I are going for on the He-Man Masters of the Universe stuff. Is, we're going for like an late 80s style. Mcfarlane, Arthur Adams, I think he was saying Michael Golden. Golden doesn't really ink like this though, but maybe he did back then more. It was a couple other things that he wanted me to check out, but it all pretty much was in this wheelhouse. So Mcfarlane's a great place to look because he's got it in spades. Stuff like this, I mean, they're pretty dead weight lines. Like there's a little bit of thin, thick on those ones, the longer ones, but these short ones are all kind of, and you could see like his line weights. But again, that's a pretty wobbly line. Like look around the fingers, you see like how it kind of sort of, again, this won't work for everything. A lot of times, like if you did this sort of look on a penciler, if you were inking someone else, they may not like it at all and go like, what are you doing? This stuff is all scratchy, and there's weird line weights and it's little spots where I don't even know why it's thicker there. It's all part of the charm. Like, look at this. That's a rough face. But, it's all part of the language of this stuff. This is a very detailed page. Holy cow. I'll just go over here really quick first, but again, this will be good for people to look at. And look, the reality is for people that are doing the anatomy figure drawing sort of lessons that I've been doing, look at how little this stuff pops up in this type of art. And the fact that you have to know all that figure drawing and anatomy just to draw stuff like this. I'm not saying you would draw like Mcfarlane, but where's the anatomy, But that's how important it is that like to draw really good heads, you actually do need to understand how to do a three-dimensional head, and then you can cartoon it like this. I mean, you can try to learn this way back. It doesn't work well. Mcfarlane is actually very, very disciplined, and because he had so many rejections breaking in, he really had to figure stuff out. So ultimately his stuff ended up looking like this, but this guy had to learn everything and relearn it and try it one way and then try it another way. I think he said he sent out 600 submissions, and every time that he was getting turned down, he was trying to fine-tune things to what the editor wanted, or editors, And so he had to learn a lot of different styles. He had to learn his, I mean, you could just imagine what would an editor tell you? Oh, your figure drawing is weird. Your faces are ugly. You draw big, goofy fingers. Your hands are weird. And, Todd had to, like, refine all that. And then when he got in and was successful, then he went back to sort of his old tricks with this new knowledge infused into it. You see, that's the difference, is to take this as a starting point is difficult because he understands what he's leaving out and what he can get away with. And, it's the same with the inks. It's he knows what to focus in on, where, it's a strong drawing that can withstand unusual inks. We'll zoom in on this and look. It's not bad, And Todd, you'll see, he'll actually kind of go back and forth between pretty loose and gritty to sometimes a little more sort of disciplined look. So he's definitely able to sort of teeter back and forth between the two. It just depends on what he's up to. But like something like this, like these chains, like as an inker, I might be tempted to put like line weights on them. It looks to me like he just took one marker and went in and outlined everything. And there's a little bit of a shadow where the links connect. See a little heavier line on the, I don't want to grab another pen, but you can see there's a heavier line on the underside of the inner links. Do you see that thicker line to the right of the chain? What's funny is it should drop to the bottom on these, but he didn't do it here. There's a thicker line right there, and then as you start to get to these lower chains, he doesn't do it anymore. I would have put it on the bottom probably, Doesn't really need to be there though, but yeah, so he just really outlined most of that stuff, although again there was a little bit of thicker lines. I don't know why he did it there. It's funny because it's maybe he just had a thicker pen and it was more coincidental. But you can see, like, I mean, this is nice. It's kind of more of a traditional inking thing. I wouldn't personally feel comfortable having the lines on the head that far spaced apart, but it works for this. And then like stuff like this, you know, it's not super finessey. These feathered lines are nice. They look like 102. This is cool. And again, I'm not, just to be clear, I'm not really criticizing what McFarlane does because I appreciate it. There's a difference. I'm just saying that like most inkers are conditioned to sort of perfect things and make things neater and slicker, and you know, you're refining things the whole time. This style isn't necessarily like that, which makes it, again, it's more challenging to decipher because of its more liquid state. And again, when it is funny is because generally if I'm giving inking advice, I'm generally giving drawing advice. So it actually does fall into this thing is like, I don't have it happen that much anymore, but pre-Patreon and sort of the transition of into Instagram and things like that, I would have people like note me on Facebook and be like, hey, can you give me some inking advice? And my inking advice generally was drawing advice, because that was the real problem. Was it's like there's certain things that an inker is sort of assumed to be able to do. Like you can feather a line, you can cross hatch and do this sort of bag of tricks. You know, it'd be like if you had a toolbox, you're going to have a screwdriver and a hammer and all that stuff. But past that, it really does start to fall into how well do you draw, how well can you decipher things, and how well are you able to translate ideas into ink from pencil. And again, I mean, just as this is an example, when I'm inking Ryan Benjamin, I'm inking in a totally different style. And then if I'm inking Dan Frega, I'm inking this style. And then if I'm inking Laura Braga, it was a different style. And when I was inking Victor Bogdanovic, that was a different style. Just in those four pencilers, it's four completely different languages that I have to acclimate to speak. You know, sometimes inkers don't get that much credit, and I'm not going to try to like sort of pat myself on the back or pat any inker on the back. But the reality is imagine a penciler having to do that. Okay, well, yeah, I know you can draw like yourself, but can you draw just like Jim Lee? Okay, now can you draw just like, you know, Dwayne Turner? Now can you draw just like Greg Capullo? Now can you draw just like Gary Frank? You know what I mean? But as an inker, that is actually part of the job description, is to be able to do that. It's pretty wild. And again, these are just outlined. That's just him using a marker and outlining those things. It works, though. It's good enough, you know? But you can see there's no line weights or blips or blops. And, yeah, sometimes simple is best. This is cool. I'm going to look at the book itself. It looks like this stuff is outlined. Some of it looks drawn in white. Like, you can see the little edges of those look drawn in white. Some of it, he looks like he outlined it, and it's just the white of the paper showing through. It's like these little speckles right here look like that they were done with white paint. Some of this up here maybe looks like it was done with white paint. Okay, we've done a few of these pages. If you're a fan of the Spawn stuff, you may be able to actually search the Patreon for Spawn, or go to my YouTube channel and search for Spawn or Mcfarlane, because I've done 2 or 3 videos on Todd's stuff. I think he's always interesting to look at, just because he's sort of the he's one of the rougher styles. If I had access to more newer black and white art, I would use it more. I mean, like you can go through people's like Instagrams and stuff like that, but you know, I have this artist edition book. This is really nice. You can see like this detailing on this guy's arm is probably either a brush or a marker. The like sort of I don't know, like chainmail sort of effect or whatever. It looks nice though. It's actually quite cool. Todd's great, man. He's really, really talented. He really is. I mean, he's become a businessman, and I don't know if drawing is always like the forefront of his focus. The last like decade, he's still got a knockout punch, but he hasn't worked as much as Jim over the last decade. If you know what I mean, like Jim's a businessman, but he definitely draws, I think, more than Todd. Silvestri doesn't draw very much, you know what I mean? Like it takes Mark years to do just about any project. Todd probably draws, well, would be debatable, but I would say Todd and Mark probably draw about the same amount now. But it's interesting, I mean, enough time has gone by, depending on your age. If you came up and were a fan of like Image Comics at any point in your life, like where they were actually still drawing stuff, it is interesting. Even if you were like 12, I mean, you could be 30 now, and yeah, it's weird when you follow artists' careers that long, how they evolve and change, and some continue to get better. I would say Arthur Adams is a good example of that, where Arthur still, to me, is doing some of the best work of his life, and I think he can always bust something out and surprise us. And then you have other artists that maybe don't have it. I think Capullo to me is still really, really good. I think that he, to me as a fan, I'm kind of ready to see him do something new, but I don't know what that is. I think like he needs to do something that's going to really challenge him and put pressure on him to figure something out. He had to figure out Batman. I think that's why Court of Owls was so strong, because his style, it doesn't easily translate to all superhero teams. Like I think the Justice League was good, but probably not as good as he is with just Batman alone. I think the Batman is more quirky. I think like the X-Men, there's certain characters in the X-Men group, like if he were to do that would work well with his style. Like he could do a really kick-ass Wolverine book. That's always been kind of the one in the back of my mind, that I think like Capullo on some sort of Wolverine Savage Land book would probably be pretty badass, and he could really do something good with that. But a traditional like Danger Room, Rogue, Psylocke, all those characters, it probably would look more like the Justice League stuff. I think those are harder books to pull off. But I still would argue that Greg is probably doing some of the best work of his career right now. So we'll keep looking at these inks. This is cool. I haven't seen some of this stuff in a long, long time. These videos are really helpful, though. I have to say that it's like seeing the stuff zoomed in like this. It is just reminding me nonstop when I like if I look at it, what these lines look like, and it's a good way to kind of brainwash myself into to doing it right. It's like this stuff right here, I would just never. Do you see those like thick and thin lines that are on that piece of wood, kind of in the middle, right to the left of the word C? I mean, I would never put stuff down like that and think that was appropriate, but there it is, and it works. It creates a little bit of a shadow there. Good enough. I mean, if you zoom back, this is why Todd's style works. Is look at this read. Do you see how clear it is? And you've got black and white and just a little bit of gray. That's what he sees. That's why the actual quality of the lines doesn't matter that much. So if you have a clear read, and Todd's really, really good at this. That's the thing, is Todd's got a really good eye for it. And his stuff actually, again, it almost reads sometimes actually kind of clean, as weird as that sounds. But I would notice that when I was a fan and would look at his books, that there actually was a clarity to his stuff, which was surprising at times. Because he could get so sort of earthy. Crude, I called it, but crude in a good way. Crude, like a junkyard dog. It's got bite. Man, look at that anatomy there. So cool. So we're seeing some anatomy here, but again, but I'm telling you, that's why it's so important to know anatomy, because you don't draw it, but you have to know and understand it to pull off like things like this. Because like to try to learn something like this from a drawing like this is just so confusing. But if you have a basic understanding of anatomy, you can fudge the crap out of stuff like this. Like, look at this leg. Do you remember our anatomy for the leg? Look at his foot and ankle. There's almost no ankles. So, you know, you understanding that will give you such a leg up on being able to cartoon. This is really important. That's your foundation. Then you go right past it. It's a hidden tool that you have. It's an expertise. Yeah, the more simple and kind of streamlined you can keep your anatomy and consistent within you, whatever style that you want to do it, you know, whatever the look of the muscles is that you ultimately kind of go with, that's what you're going to build off on, up and off. Oh, I can't wait for the next book of this. It's going to be so good. It's coming soon. It's like a month away. I'm gonna bug my wife about putting it on Amazon pre-order here soon. But I'm curious to see if the Angela issue is going to be in there, because that was like a big deal. Lawsuit, and Todd lost it, and Neil Gaiman, and blah blah blah, and there's a lot of those issues have I think co-created things and characters from other books, and I'm hoping it's all in there, because that Angela issue is actually really good, so I'm excited to see it. But again, this is pretty tight and clean, but it's just not finessey like if Scott Williams inked this thing would be lickety slick. If Sandra Hope inked it, or Bat, you know what I mean, like it wouldn't have this. And there's not a lot of detail, but these kind of lines, you see this, like the feathering off of here, like some of them have little gaps in them. He's just drawing like a little bit of value. That's all it is. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up, because again, I don't want to have to edit this video, so we'll find one more point of interest. So like this is marker. He took marker and just sort of speckled it onto that face. Could be brush, but it looks like marker to me. But anyway, brush with like kind of a watery ink, but good stuff to see. Really nice. Great job. Okay, I'll talk to you all later. Have a great day, and as soon as my arm is healed up, I'll start doing more regular drawing videos again. I just want to get better. All right, bye.